This is further evidence of why the WNBA and the Players Union need to get it together, because there are people who are watching now. I'm sure they're going to watch the players wherever they end up. But people are dialed into the WNBA. This is, as Caitlin has said over and over again, the greatest moment.
World Basketball Day accidentally exposed a problem the league wasn't ready for. Fans are crossing oceans, waking up in the middle of the night, flying thousands of miles for regular season games, and the league can't even get a jersey to their doorstep. This isn't a hype cycle. This isn't a viral week. This is a global surge happening in real time, and it's colliding head-on with business decisions that could stall everything. Because once you see how far these fans are going, you start to realize just how fragile this moment really is. People like to say sports fandom is casual now. Scroll a little, watch highlights, move on. That's not what's happening here. Fans aren't just tuning in. They're reorganizing their lives around tip-off times. They're setting alarms for 3 a.m. They're watching full games live from continents away. They're flying across borders for matchups that, a year ago, barely registered outside the US. That's not casual interest. That's devotion. And what makes it even wilder is that a lot of these fans weren't lifelong basketball diehards. Some had never followed an NBA season. Some didn't grow up with the sport at all. Yet somehow they're now locked into one team, one roster, one league. This kind of behavior usually takes decades to build. Generations. Here, it happened almost overnight. But obsession only matters if it can be sustained, and that's where the cracks start to show. Because as global demand exploded, fans ran into a wall that felt shockingly basic. Imagine being ready to spend your money. You've picked your player. You've waited all season. You hit checkout. And suddenly, it feels like the system is pushing you away. International fans started realizing something uncomfortable. Getting official merchandise wasn't just expensive, it was confusing, slow, and sometimes nearly impossible. Shipping fees ballooned. Duties piled on. Stock disappeared. And for many fans, the message felt clear, even if it wasn't intentional. We see you, but we're not built for you. That perception matters more than spreadsheets ever will. Because fandom is emotional. When people feel ignored at the peak of excitement, momentum doesn't just slow, it leaks out. And while fans were refreshing pages and begging for access, something much bigger was unfolding behind closed doors. Because the league wasn't just dealing with growth pains. It was walking into a power struggle. Here's the part that makes this moment so dangerous. This isn't a league scraping for relevance. The numbers don't lie anymore. Viewership spiked to levels not seen in decades. Attendance surged. Digital engagement exploded. Merchandise sales jumped across the board. Every major metric screamed the same thing. This wasn't incremental growth. This was a breakout. And that kind of breakout changes everything. Because when revenue jumps fast, expectations jump even faster. Players saw the surge and asked the obvious question. If the league is booming, why don't we feel it? Ownership looked at long-term sustainability and said, if we move too fast, this could collapse. Both sides believe they're protecting the future. And that's exactly why the tension is so dangerous. Because while fans see highlights in packed arenas, negotiations were turning colder by the month. At the center of it all is a ticking clock. Players have already taken the step that no league ever wants to hear. Authorizing a strike if negotiations go sideways. Not a bluff. Not a rumor. A real lever, waiting to be pulled. The current labor agreement has a hard deadline. And once that date hits, uncertainty isn't hypothetical anymore. Here's the problem no one likes to say out loud. Momentum doesn't care about negotiations. It doesn't pause. It doesn't wait. If games stop, fans don't freeze in place. They drift. The alarms stop ringing. The flights stop getting booked. The habit breaks. And habits are everything in sports. But just as this tension was building, the league was forced to confront another issue. One that comes with sudden mainstream attention. Rapid growth always attracts noise. And not all of it is good. As women's basketball pushed deeper into the spotlight, players began dealing with a wave of online hostility that couldn't be ignored. The league acknowledged it publicly. Task forces were formed. Conversations shifted. This wasn't about one incident or one platform. It was about scale. Because when something breaks through culturally, it draws everyone in, fans, critics, opportunists, and people who never cared before but suddenly have opinions. That creates pressure on players. Pressure on the league. Pressure on leadership to prove they can handle more than just sold-out arenas. And all of this was happening while fans overseas were asking a much simpler question. If you know we're here, why does it feel like we're an afterthought? What makes this even more frustrating is that the blueprint already exists. Global basketball infrastructure isn't theoretical. It's real. It's active. It's operating right now. Major basketball events already run smoothly in international markets. Facilities exist. Broadcast systems exist. Regional fan bases are hungry. Fans aren't asking for miracles. They're asking for access. Exhibition games. Clear streaming options. Merchandise that doesn't feel like a luxury item after fees. Acknowledgement that their passion counts. And when that acknowledgement doesn't come, frustration turns into skepticism. Because this moment feels historic, and history has a bad habit of slipping away when organizations hesitate. Here's the truth that makes decision-makers uncomfortable. This era will be studied one day. Not just for what happened on the court, but for how the league responded off it. Did they scale fast enough? Did they listen closely enough? Did they protect the season while the world was watching? Or did they let internal friction and slow systems drain the energy out of something rare? Because this kind of attention doesn't knock twice. Fans don't rearrange their lives forever. They give you a window. And that window is open right now. Momentum is a fragile thing. It's built on routine, access, and trust. Break the routine, and people drift. Limit access, and curiosity fades. Lose trust, and passion turns into nostalgia. That's what's at stake here. Fix the buying experience, and fans feel welcomed. Resolve labor talks, and the season stays alive. Expand globally, and this turns from a moment into a movement. Ignore it, and the world moves on faster than anyone expects. So if you're watching this, understand something. You're not just a spectator. Every view, every comment, every conversation adds pressure. Pressure that tells leagues what matters. Pressure that decides whether moments like this get protected or wasted. If you want to stay ahead of stories like this, the ones unfolding before headlines catch up, make sure you're subscribed. Because this era of basketball is being written in real time, and the next move might decide everything. This isn't just about jerseys. It's about whether the league can rise to meet the moment it created. And the world is watching. And here's the part that almost no one wants to admit. Moments like this don't usually arrive when a league is perfectly prepared. They arrive when systems are outdated, policies are slow, and leadership is still thinking in last season terms. That's exactly what makes this stretch so dangerous. Because the fans showing up right now aren't just reacting to a player or a team. They're forming habits. They're choosing identities. For some people, this has already replaced the sports they grew up with. Not supplemented, replaced. And once a fan chooses a league as their league, that loyalty can last decades, if it's handled correctly. But loyalty is a two-way street. What's quietly happening behind the scenes is a split between perception and reality. From the outside, it looks like everything is perfect. Packed arenas, record numbers, mainstream attention. But internally, the league is being forced to confront questions it's never had to answer this loudly before. How fast is too fast? Who controls the upside? And who gets left behind when growth outpaces infrastructure? Because here's what rapid growth exposes. Every weak link you used to ignore. International fulfillment. Broadcast accessibility. Player protections. Crisis response. Labor balance. These weren't urgent when attention was modest. Now they're unavoidable. And fans can sense it. That's why the frustration feels sharper than normal. It's not just about cost. It's not just about shipping delays. It's not just about negotiations. It's about expectations rising faster than execution. When fans see sold-out games and record ratings, they assume the basics are handled. When they aren't, the disconnect feels personal. Almost like being invited to the party, but stopped at the door. That emotional whiplash is what organizations underestimate every time. Because fans don't measure leagues by internal constraints. They measure them by experience. And right now, the experience feels uneven. There's also something else bubbling under the surface. This surge didn't come from years of slow marketing or manufactured hype. It came from authenticity. People felt like they discovered something real, something electric, something worth defending. That's why rivalries intensified so quickly. That's why debates became louder. That's why emotions started running hotter than anyone expected. When something feels earned, people fight for it. But when the institution behind it feels unsteady, that same passion can turn volatile. And that's where leadership matters most. Because the league isn't just managing a business cycle anymore. It's managing belief. Belief that games will keep happening. Belief that stars will be protected. Belief that fans won't be forgotten the moment attention shifts elsewhere. That belief is fragile. And the worst thing a league can do during a belief-driven surge is appear indecisive. Fans don't need perfection. They need clarity. Tell them what's coming. Show them you're moving. Let them feel like they're part of something being built, not something being argued over. Silence is what kills momentum, not mistakes. There's a reason people keep bringing up this moment as historic. It's not nostalgia. It's pattern recognition. Sports history is full of inflection points where everything could have gone one of two ways. Some leagues capitalized and exploded. Others hesitated and never fully recovered. The difference was rarely talent. It was timing. And timing doesn't wait for comfort. Right now, the window is still open. Fans are still setting alarms. Still booking flights. Still refreshing stores. Still defending their teams online. But that window won't stay open forever. Interest is patient until it isn't. And when people move on, they rarely announce it. They just stop showing up. This is why the next stretch matters more than any single season. Because what's being decided now isn't standings or stats. It's trust. Trust that growth will be handled responsibly. Trust that voices on all sides are heard. Trust that this wasn't a flash in the pan. If the league gets this right, this era becomes the foundation for the next 20 years. If it doesn't, people will look back and say, that was the moment everything could have changed. And that's why conversations like this matter. Because awareness creates accountability. And accountability forces movement. If you want to stay ahead of where this story goes next, not after it's resolved, but while it's still unfolding, stay connected. Subscribe, stay watching, and stay curious. Because the most important chapter of this era hasn't been written yet. And whatever happens next, the world will remember who was ready and who wasn't. What makes this moment even heavier is how rare it actually is. Most leagues spend years chasing global relevance. Campaigns, partnerships, influencers, carefully staged rollouts. Here, none of that sparked the fire. It happened organically. One breakout season. One surge of attention. Millions of people discovering the league at the exact same time and deciding, almost instinctively, this matters. That kind of discovery can't be manufactured. And once it passes, it doesn't come back the same way. That's why hesitation right now feels dangerous. Behind the scenes, every delay compounds. When shipping isn't fixed, fans don't just wait, they form workarounds. Unofficial merch. Third-party sellers. Knockoffs. Money that could strengthen the league ecosystem quietly leaks elsewhere. When streaming access feels unclear, fans don't complain forever. They stop checking schedules. They stop building routines. When labor uncertainty drags on, doubt creeps in. Not anger. Doubt. And doubt is the enemy of long-term fandom. What's fascinating is how clearly fans can sense this imbalance. They may not know contract language or revenue splits, but they understand momentum. They understand when something is being mishandled. That's why so many conversations online don't sound casual anymore. They sound protective, like people guarding something they don't want to lose. That's powerful, but it also creates pressure. Because when fans care this much, disappointment hits harder. There's also a deeper shift happening that's easy to miss. This wave isn't just expanding the audience. It's reshaping who the audience is. Different countries, different age groups, different entry points into the sport. Some fans arrive through college hoops, others through highlights, others through word of mouth. But once they arrived, they didn't stay on the surface. They dove in. That's how you know something is real. And this is where the league faces its most uncomfortable truth. Growth like this doesn't just raise revenue. It raises expectations faster than systems can evolve. Fans expect professionalism. Players expect fairness. Sponsors expect stability. Those expectations don't negotiate with each other. They collide. And the way those collisions are handled will define how this era is remembered. Because history doesn't remember intentions. It remembers outcomes. It remembers whether fans felt welcomed or sidelined. Whether players felt valued or stalled. Whether leadership moved decisively or hesitated too long. That's the legacy being shaped right now, not in highlights, but in boardrooms and back-end systems. There's still time. That's the good news. Time to streamline access. Time to communicate clearly. Time to resolve tension without freezing progress. But time only helps if it's used. Momentum doesn't slow gently. It drops. And once it does, rebuilding takes years. So when people say this feels like a crossroads, they're not exaggerating. This is the point where something either scales into permanence or fades into a remember when. Fans have already made their choice. They showed up. Now the question is whether the league meets them there. If you're still watching, you already understand what's at stake. This isn't noise. This isn't manufactured outrage. This is a real-time stress test of growth. And stories like this don't unfold quietly. They resolve loudly. So if you want to stay locked in as this moment plays out, before the headlines simplify it, before the narratives harden, subscribe. Because the next decisions will shape the future of the league, and whether this surge becomes a turning point or a missed opportunity people talk about for decades. And one way or another, what happens next will be remembered. There's one final piece to this that ties everything together, and it's the part most people overlook. Leagues don't lose moments because fans disappear. They lose moments because they assume fans will wait. Wait for shipping fixes. Wait for negotiations. Wait for clarity. Wait for leadership to catch up. But modern fandom doesn't work like that anymore. People don't leave loudly. They leave quietly. One less alarm set. One less game watched live. One less attempt to buy merch. One less conversation with friends. And by the time the numbers reflect it, the moment is already gone. That's why this surge feels different from past growth phases. It isn't built on hype alone. It's built on behavior. People invested time, money, emotion. They chose this league in a crowded sports landscape where attention is the most expensive currency there is. That choice matters, and it creates an obligation. This is the point where leadership, players, and decision-makers have to zoom out. Not just look at balance sheets or bargaining positions, but look at the people waking up in different time zones, refreshing stores, defending the league online, and rearranging their lives around game nights. That's not a casual audience. That's a foundation. And foundations are either reinforced or cracked under pressure. If this moment is handled right, this era becomes the reference point. The moment women's basketball didn't just grow, it arrived. If it's mishandled, it becomes a cautionary tale. A reminder that momentum is borrowed, not owned. And that's why this story isn't over. Not even close. The next decisions will decide whether this surge turns into permanence or fades into a what could have been. Fans have already shown up. They've done their part. Now the league has to prove it understands what it's holding. If you're still here, you're already ahead of most people. You're watching this unfold in real time, not after it's packaged into headlines or rewritten as history. And stories like this don't resolve quietly. They swing one way or the other. So if you want to stay locked into what happens next, the moves, the missteps, the turning points, make sure you're subscribed. Because this isn't just a season. It's a moment. And moments like this don't come around often.